Right, welcome back everyone. So Alan, the floor is yours.
So just a couple of things we want you to think about. We will come back to you at the end of this PowerPoint to get your feedback on both of these schemes. So the other scheme we consulted on was for 6-storey residential. So this was for any development within the 4AVs that had at least 6 stories of residential development. We allowed them to use parking and storage levels, but not mezzanine floors, rooftop terraces and non-residential levels. The scheme criteria required a covenant to restrict the property being used for commercial purposes, like short stay accommodation and Airbnbs, and the scheme had a limit of $2 million.
There was the strongest year from submitted feedback on this scheme, with 20% supporting and 50% opposing. If any, we asked the funding how much should be. 15 answered this, with around half wanting the maximum option provided of $10 million. The matters liked about this scheme was that it encourages development and it encourages density in the right place. And what they said that they didn't like was that the height threshold was too strict, with many suggesting that 2 or 3 stories would be more appropriate. The perception of ratepayers providing handouts with subsidies to developers, that it only provides financial benefit to developers, or that there was no evidence that developers would pass on savings, and that council should not be encouraging high-rise buildings.
Right, so again, some questions we want you to think about when we come back to discussion time. So just one other thing we did just want to follow up on that was raised on the 24th of June is there's a question around what is the difference in revenue between the 2 policies. So you've seen this slide before. But the key point here is that the 2021 policy does not completely account for the actual cost to deliver growth infrastructure. Developers are currently paying development contributions based on significantly outdated costs and are not contributing towards projects in the 2024 LTP. As development contributions are a one-off payment and council cannot require other developers to pay for infrastructure capacity that's been taken up by a developer that did not pay for it, that difference in revenue becomes ratepayer funded. And as we've talked about, rebate schemes are also rates funded because the council is agreeing to waive a development contribution requirement to incentivise a development type. So therefore, we recommend that if you are to adopt any rebate schemes, you also adopt the 2025 policy. Otherwise, council is providing rebates on top of DC charges that are currently too low to cover your actual growth. So in terms of next steps, we will prepare final scheme criteria based on the feedback that we receive from you next. The final schemes will be presented on the 24th of August for your consideration alongside the DC policy. So we need some direction from you, really, what you want to do. So this one is for the existing demand credits rebate. So we firstly want to know, do you want to progress the scheme? If you do you want to extend it to buildings that are still standing or extend it to all sites in the central city? And if you do you want to split it into 2 schemes? Because if you remember, you've backdated the rebate scheme to consents that were submitted on the 1st of March 2024. And the other thing is, how much revenue do you want to forego to progress both of these schemes?
Some questions on this.
This is looking for direction.
Yes.
Yes.
What do you think?
Yeah, we'll certainly still support going to the 6 stories. I mean, we've got 10, 20 pieces of feedback, many from people with financial interest in 2, 3-story buildings. So of course they want to read.
Oh, so this one's on the existing demand credits, and then we've got Central City next.
Okay.
Feedback, ladies and gentlemen.
With regards to this, what do you think the general feeling of those that came and spoke to us is on this? Because we've obviously got a connection with them. I don't know. What I got this morning was a bit of a disconnection, seeming to me to what they're looking at. So I'm just wondering what the general feeling is out there with regards to this, because you've just given us the stats about the feedback. But the feedback numbers were pretty small, weren't they? So,
Yeah, I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but the general feedback we got with this rebate scheme was support for it. Support for including the vacant sites as well as the building, and support for the upper limit, which was 30 million.
Yeah, and roll the six story into one.
That's the next one. Just to comment on this too, that a lot of the questions has been about the policy as well today. So we're getting sort of conflated with the policy and the rebate scheme. So I encourage you to look at them separately. You still have to consider the policy, but these are separate just in case, just the rebate. Yeah.
Just a correction on that one. The overall support, there wasn't a steer that it was positive that people supported it. It was very, very split. So
Yeah,
that's
sorry.
not super helpful, but yeah.
and with this, none of this, because the Sue Lynn, who spoke to us, we've got a huge amount of 2-bedroom, 2-story, like the Village Court, for instance. But to try and bring in a community with, like 3 or 4 bedrooms, etc., with a balcony, should make whether it's 3 stories or 6 stories or 2. It seems to me that's the missing link to create a vibrant city in the city. I'm just wondering, none of this seems to be steering people to that.
What we're finding in some of the data is that it's not necessarily that people don't want to live in a 2-bedroom apartment, it's that what's being built doesn't fit the needs of people who are maybe looking to downsize in terms of having storage and privacy and amenity values in the area and somewhere to, put their car or their bike, things like that. It's just that what's currently being built is meeting the demand for people who are maybe in the market for something smaller. But that's really not something we can incentivise with development contributions because it's too blunt of a tool. And it's also, we don't really have great data that shows that development contributions impact development decisions. So a great example of this was when we required developers to load a covenant on their titles to receive the residential rebate in the past. We found that developers were choosing to just pay the development contributions instead of receiving the rebate and having a covenant on their titles.
That's about not using Airbnb. Yeah.
Well, it kind of goes 2 ways, because I've talked to people that are buying 2-bedroom apartments to Airbnb because of the station, and others who've come into the city for a short period of time to kind of see what it's like, want to stay there, but want 3 or 4 bedrooms and storage, etc. But there's nothing, so they've gone back to where they were. So I mean, I don't know what we're trying to achieve. I know we want to go out and we've got the big buildings, commercial buildings, and that's a separate issue with, whether it's a restaurant, a bar, a McDonald's, whatever that is, ground floor. But how do we create a New York or London feel for those ongoing generational people that wanted to create a true community in this city? Because a couple that get a 2-bedroom place, then have 1 child and 2, but suddenly you've only got 2 bedroom, but you've got no storage, and something. What do we do? How do we create that? Because I think for me, that's the missing link. And it's not really covered here. Probably we didn't ask for that, I guess, but.
Yeah, so these schemes reflect what you guys said you wanted. So we've just
We can't read. Developers will build to a demand. If they see a lot of demand, they'll do it. But you can't. So. Okay, Sarah, please.
Just checking. So because we didn't specifically distinguish between historic and actual paid development contributions in the past, is it possible for us to differentiate in a decision list? So for example, if we went ahead with the existing demand credits rebate, are we able to apply it only to those who have already paid? So those properties that have already paid extra DZ.
If you did that, you wouldn't rebate anything. Nothing in the central city that's expired paid. credits.
So all of those people who come in and said, we've already paid DCs, that's actually
Not on the sites that are subject to the rebate scheme.
not on the site that are budget rebate,
So they might have paid DCs on something else, but not.
but not on the site that would be. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
I just wanted to check what
Yeah.
rates impact of the 30 million.
Sorry?
The rates impact of the 30 million.
So we have finance here. We did the report that went to council on the 18th of June provided the rates impact for what we consulted on, so the 5 million and the $2 million schemes. But Mitchell, are you able to speak to what would happen if we brought in the schemes?
Quite catch the question. Oh, so yeah, in the slide that we've got, so if we raise the funding limit, total funding limit from 5 to 30 million.
Yep.
And we keep the expiration of the 30th of June 27. What is the funding, the rates impact?
Would be about 0.28% over 2 years.
0.28% over 2 years. So that half of this, is that each year?
Would be weighted 40-60. So about 0.12 in the immediate year and the remaining year following.
And is that, do we borrow to do this?
Yes, yeah, so it's essentially the rating impact is the cost of the interest expense and the debt repayment that the council would incur.
Okay, good answer, thanks very much. So, right, where are we at? Helen wants to know, are we interested in progressing this debate? I think to the general. Yes.
It just needs to go to council for a vote. I think it's a no.
Is that council vote? But yeah, that's what we can do as well, voting against that. Yeah. Okay, and the bottom one, I feel, in my view, put it in 1, not 2. Yeah.
Okay. So the other one is 6-story residential. So is there interest in progressing it? And if so, is there anything you wanted to change about the scheme criteria, and how much revenue are you willing to forego?
Can you talk just a little bit more about the residential rebate, just to elaborate?
Yeah, so it's for 6-story residential in the central city. So it can be, it just needs to contain 6 stories worth of residential development. It can be mixed use on the bottom as long as there's 6 stories of residential. You can use a level that is dedicated to parking or storage, but you can't use mezzanine levels or rooftop terraces. We require that the development puts a covenant on each unit that receives the rebate to restrict it for residential purposes. So that would exclude it from being used for any commercial purposes, short stay accommodation, FBs, things like that. So it's very similar to the residential rebate scheme you've had in the past, but it's with.
So that sounds really good, yeah. In terms of the capacity, so for example, in one of the slides you've got 95% 1 bedrooms, 82% 2, et cetera, et cetera. Bottom slide, are there any other incentives to? Yes, the census data. It's at the bottom, it's the last one. Yes, so are there any possible incentives for capacity for bedrooms, for example, if there's an excess of 1 bedroom? Potentially 3.
We didn't consult on a bedroom-based rebate scheme.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where things get a little bit tricky. We didn't consult on and to incentivise beyond what we've actually consulted on.
And the last thing I wanted to talk about was there was a feasibility report that was sent out. And regarding that, in terms of the spatial plan that is going to be going on within the housing provision, are there going to be certain areas within the CBD that would be incentivised like 3 areas, or is it just going to be 24 areas?
We've currently set it for everything within the 4As. We're spending more targeted than that at this stage.
Yep, no, that's fine. Thank you. Okay, fine.
With the 6 stories, are you expecting that it will have any uptake at all? No. I don't like it purely because it buys into the idea that DC rebates are actually an incentive. I don't believe they are.
Yeah.
And I also don't like putting in place policies that will simply never be used.
Yeah.
I think that's silly.
Yeah, we can't say it'll never be used, but
No, I know
they're
they're
not, they don't have 6-story buildings at the moment.
With the covenant that restricts them, how they can be used.
Right, Aaron?
Yeah, so
Wrap it up.
going back to some policies that might attract building in the inner city. If we considered giving away airspace above footpaths, so like on Sue's point around livable balconies, we give away the space over the footpath, and the balconies are above the footpath. You could get so people interacting on the street. They do it in Europe, and it's quite popular there. But then we get savants over our footpaths. So when it's raining, you've got cover, and when it's really, really hot in the middle of summer, when the sun's straight up, not on an angle, you've got cover. But have we ever considered that as a city?
People apply to buy airspace over the footpath, so that does happen.
Do we charge for it?
I think we do, yes.
Can we, what about if we make it free? So for giving a cover, it means there's extra square meterage in the city, then we get to rate them for the extra square meterage anyway, so we're going to get them. But it encourages them up front to do it. Have we ever looked at that, or could we look at trying on a couple of developments?
Maybe come back with some advice on that, but I know there's one development in at the moment, the downtown deployment that's being done by People's Group. That does involve a number of balconies over the footpaths.
Yeah, because and then you create security, because people are out on the balconies, they're looking down the streets all the time, that kind of thing. It's a real website.
Yeah. It's got some difficulties as well.
So may I say that the structure of road policy covers the airspace above balconies and living space, that kind of thing, which is being reviewed at the moment.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, just to pick up an early point, there's certainly that there's no excess of 1 bedrooms being built or that exist in Christchurch. 26% of households in Christchurch have 1 person in them, but only 6.5% of households have 1 bedroom. So the whole of the ghost bedrooms in the city and a lack of 1 bedroom space, a huge lack. Chronic thing. Yeah, I think we should be progressing with this, but the idea that it will never get used, well, it won't cost us a cent. So what's the harm in doing so? But if no one's planning to build any 6-story and above residential buildings in the city, we've actually got a really big problem ahead of us, and how we're going to intensify the city, plans rolling out donut city with more intensification that we're about to allow in suburbs. We've got a huge problem ahead of us, and no one's planning to build one. So if we do nothing with it, no incentives, then what are we doing about it? That's all.
Won't have to spend so $6 million on MRT.
Right, tush.
So yeah, I think we should be progressing. Unless someone's got a better idea, then let's hear it. But just on the feedback as well, like no compelling reasons have been given not to do it thus far. But we've also got stacks and stacks of feedback and over the last few years about people telling us to intensify housing more in the central city and do what we can to be encouraging that. I feel like we've got other forms of public feedback and stacks of it asking us to incentivise the benefits.
Yanni, then James.
Yeah, thanks. So if we did do this, could we tag it to the provision of affordable or social housing? Like, how do we, like, the information that we've got around what's happening with homelessness, for example, and the GCP information we've got, that just having zoning capacity doesn't help people at the bottom or low end with the need. Is there anything that we could do as part of this that would require a certain amount of affordable or social housing?
So we already have a rebate scheme for social housing, which has been in place since 2007. So we're already rebating social housing, provided that it is provided by a appropriate provider. The problem with affordable housing is We actually used to have it in the social housing policy and we took it out because it was too difficult to administer, because you have issues of what is affordable, how do you ensure that it stays affordable after the property is sold, and the other issue is Ministry of Housing and Urban Development have funding for developers who provide affordable housing to cover the cost of capital expenditure, including development contributions. So there are other avenues that providers of affordable housing have to fund that development type outside of development contributions. So there are some sort of issues with having an affordable housing rebate scheme.
But if, for example, we wanted to give like if we said to someone, we'll give you a DC rebate to build 6 stories, as part of that, we could say with a covenant that X amount of that has to be for affordable housing at this level.
We didn't consult on any affordable housing components to the rebate scheme, so we wouldn't be able to do it with this decision made.
Yes, and lastly, James.
Well, just a quick one. Look, it's pretty clear that, you know, and we know this ourselves, that 6-story residential developments are particularly prevalent for a variety of reasons, you know, just the economics of it, and engineering, and also the culture, I guess, here in Christchurch. I think that's come through loud and clear and it's been reaffirmed. But has there been any thought, or would there be appetite of merit potentially coming to the party, someone say, well, look, agree that increased density is positive for the city. 6 might be a bit far, but through this process, then perhaps say from 4 stories and above or something.
So that was one of the things council could choose to do, is if you wanted to change anything,
So you go
you
3
could
months or something.
drop it. We wouldn't recommend 2 or 3 stories because then you're just going to rebate townhouses.
Yeah, so hence
But
what
that would be your call. That this rebate reflects what the council said you wanted.
No, and I totally accept that. So then, you know, say like 4 plus, but then would that mean you don't have to sort of reconsult again or anything like that?
Well,
No, you'd make the changes as a result of consultation feedback.
Yeah.
What we've heard though from people is that it doesn't stack up, feasibility doesn't stack up until you get to about 6. So anything above that sort of 3 doesn't really stack up until.
Well, I think what they were essentially saying is that the feasibility from 6 doesn't work.
Or what costs us, happy days.
Anyway,
Still rates for it
right.
though.
Good answer.
That's an option.
Very good answer. Question.
Okay, thank you. Right, we'll have knock off for lunch and be back at 1.
Yeah, sorry, I just need to move in.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Kelly's going to move it and Andre's seconding it, that we received this information. For those in favour, against, thank you, carried. Now, carried, yes, please.
One for the best time for the day.
Thank you very much. See you at 1 o'clock.